Today is the 6th of June, and we now have a quorum. I am the Vice Chair of the AI Council, Mark Holmes, also the Chief Technology Officer for the Agency of Digital Services. For the other committee members, we're going to ask that you announce yourselves for the beginning of the video as well. So let's go to you, Mr. Neer. Joe, I don't know if you...
Sorry, I'm Joe Neer. I'm at the University of Vermont, and I'm representing the ACLU.
Great. Mr. Sussman?
Hi, I'm Phil Sussman. I'm the president of Norwich University Applied Research Institutes, and I'm the governor's appointee.
And John, I know you hate to refer to as Dr. Cohn, but John?
I'm John Cohn. I work at Data Technologies, but I'm here representing Vermont Academy of Science and Engineering.
All right. And Amanda.
Hi, Amanda Jones. I'm the Data Modernization Director, and I'm the representative from Health.
Great. So we have our quorum. We're called to order at this point. Oh, we had Jessica just join us as well. So Jessica is another council member if you'd like to introduce yourself.
It's Mark. Hi, everyone. I'm Jess Vintner. I'm the representative from the Agency of Commerce and Community Development.
Thank you very much. And Susanna Davis has joined us as well. So Susanna, if you want to announce yourself or identify yourself.
Hi, Susanna Davis, Racial Equity Office. If I drop, I'll come back. It's just me versus the robots. Sorry.
It's okay. That's okay. All right. So
and Ron.
Thank you.
Ron is a counselor as well.
Yeah, I didn't see. Oh, yeah, in the bottom corner there. Hi, Ron. Sorry.
Sorry, I jumped on a little late. Ron LaFon, I'm the director of the Homeland Security Unit here in Vermont.
Thank you for joining. So, okay. So today's agenda, Josiah, we want to post it. It's
yeah,
in the chat. Yep, throw it on the screen. So first up, we have some meeting minutes to approve from going as far back as October, and then December and May. And then we will review any updates to procurement guidance and generative AI guidance. And then we will open it up for the folks on the phone who are part of the public for public comment. Again, we want to stress to everyone to, announce yourself, keep your comments as much as possible germane and within a 2-minute time frame if you can. So we will try to get through this so we can make the most efficient use of our Fridays. So let's get to the minutes approval. So let's start with the October 4th, 2024 minutes.
And just for a reminder for everyone, we're working through our old minutes that were not previously posted. We're getting those posted and been working through approving them. So we have the October 4th. And Phil, we did go through and make sure your name was spelled correctly. Depending on what minute you looked at it, you may or may not have picked up on that update. But just want to let you know that we did do that. And I think the way that we do this is a motion to approve the minutes and then a second and then vote to approve them. So back over to you, Mark.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, so it was humanized that updated the Sussman rather than AI. So so does anybody have any questions, any comments about the 10/4/24 minutes? And if not, would anybody like to make the motion that we approve?
I would move that we approve the minutes from October 4th.
Second.
Okay, I have a second. All right. And any others interested in conversation about them before we vote? Okay, so we have a motion to approve. All those in favor, use a thumbs up with your hand raised, whichever we can see. Okay, thank you. I think we got unanimous approval. All right, I see unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next up will be the 6th of December minutes. If anybody has any questions or discussion, Jess, your hand's still up. Thank you. All right. Anybody would like to make a motion to approve or otherwise?
I would move that we approve the minutes from December 6th, 2024.
No, can I have a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you, Ron. All right, all those in favor of approval for the December 6th minutes from 2024? I see thumbs
Aye.
up, thumbs up, hands up, and hands up. All right, thank you. So we have unanimous approval of the December 6th minutes. Now we are up to last month's minutes. So Josiah, does this catch us up on our old missing minutes?
The way we've been doing it is we do the previous meeting minutes and then 2 from the olden days. So we'll
Okay.
do back through August. I think that's as far as we need to go. So there'll be one more round of this, and then it'll just be going forward.
Okay, so okay, thank you. All right, so let's work on the 2nd of May minutes. Any questions, comments about those minutes?
Don't you have to have a motion to write from Robert's rules and a second to be able to discuss it, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry that I'm in my head. I was already done that. So we have a motion
So I
for that?
would move the May 2nd, 2025 minutes for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, raise your hands or thumbs up or whichever. Okay, I see unanimous approvals there as well. So thank you very much. We have approval of all 3 outstanding minutes there.
All those years as a faculty senator actually were good for something, huh?
I'm sure they were good for many things. All right, let's see. So the next up on our agenda is the procurement guidelines for today. So Josiah, Joe,
Yeah.
just as
Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say this is something that you wanted to present, correct?
Yep. It's
Okay.
presentation and then working through some of it. The other thing that was on our agenda was general updates. Maybe can I do those first?
Sure.
Okay, so a couple of things coming up for the council to be aware of. The first one is we got a start date for our new AI director. That was the role that I previously filled, and I'm filling in an interim basis until we hire a new AI director. So his name is Miles. He's accepted. He will be starting June 30th. So hope to introduce you all to him at our July meeting. I'm very excited about that. And his focus will be more on the internal facing side of AI use around the state, kind of in alignment with the statutory definition for his role. And I'll still be around, so you won't get away from me on these council meetings. But I'm excited to have him and to help move forward our AI initiatives across the state. So next thing I had was
Josiah.
yeah.
Will he be a member of? He'll be a standing member, or he'll attend these meetings.
He'll attend these meetings. He'll be attending them like I am now, as the person who is advised by the council, not actually as a council member. And he'll over time take over the kind of preparing for these meetings and shaping where the discussion goes, so that the council can guide his role.
Right on.
Any other questions about that?
No, thank you.
I'm really
for that
excited.
update. Yeah,
It's been
we
like
are as well.
over a year that we've been working on recruiting for that role. So excited that it is finally coming together. Next item is the state AI advisors are gathering in Princeton in a little over a week. That'll be great. That's kind of all the people in that role. That's a lot of chief data officers. Some states have a dedicated AI director role, like Vermont does. And I think at least one council member maybe is going to that as well. So there will be a lot of discussion about how we coordinate across states and sharing best practices. There are a few of those types of convenings, but this is the first one that's kind of been just the state AI directors and as many of them as can come. And it will be most of them. So it's great. So I'll give you a readout on that next month. And then There was some churn recently in the federal budget. There was a provision that got added in reconciliation about AI regulation and a moratorium on AI regulation by states for 10 years was the proposal in there. I think 40 attorneys general now have signed on to the that's a bad idea, don't do that, including Vermont's. I don't believe that has gone anywhere as far as like that hasn't passed. That language, as far as I know, is not on the books. So we're not currently precluded from doing AI regulation, but that's something that we've been tracking. We don't expect it to pass, at least not in its current form, or to happen. Sorry, we don't expect that moratorium to come into effect in its current form, at least, and probably not at all. But just wanted to let the council know that is something that we're tracking. And John, you have your hand up, so go ahead.
Do we have any idea how that language got in there and what interest put that in there? It is a terrible idea. That's my personal opinion, but how did it get in there? Who sponsored that language?
It came out of the committee. I didn't see a particular individual associated with it, but it was the federal House, like the national level, the House. I can't remember what exactly they call it. I think it's the Energy and Technology Committee. Put it in there, and so yeah, that's where it appeared. We don't have anyone from the AG's office on today. Otherwise, I'd ask if they wanted to comment on it, but since they weren't able to join us, anyway, feel free to reach out to them. They may have updates.
Yeah,
go ahead, Michelle.
I didn't mean to make a comment. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it was dropped from the Senate version of the bill decidedly. So just for clarification there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, those are the items that I had for general updates. So anybody else got things they want to share? AI Vermont has another teacher summit at the end of the month. I should mention that as well. I think it's the 28th or the Saturday, right around there somewhere. If anyone wants an invite to that, feel free to reach out to me, or I bet John could land you an invite as well. And happy to facilitate that. All right, and with that, I'll pivot over to talking about procurement, which was the main item we wanted to dive into today. So just review, because it's been a little bit since we talked about this. IT procurement, ADS has authority over, and ADS exercises that authority through the procurement advisory team. We have lots of contract language, lots of contract terms that cover things like data privacy, security. A lot of those general concerns that AI exacerbates, but are not specific to AI, are already covered under existing language and terms from a contract perspective. And we also do AI pilots. The AI director evaluates those and does risk assessments for them, and finds ways of making them not risky before approving those to go forward. Those don't always come from or result in a procurement. Some of those are internal, but we have some protocols in place for that, which we hit at a high level, I think in April. So what I wanted to focus on today was AI use that isn't in the context of like an IT procurement or an IT project. So what we are seeing, and just trying to frame this up for you all so you know where I'm coming from, what we're seeing is more and more contracts for things that would not traditionally be IT having AI involved in them. So one example was there was a contract or a procurement going on at Human Services for training for field staff who are doing interviews with clients, and they wanted somebody to come in and do some coaching around the interview process and how to make those more effective and how they were going. And one of the responses they got was an AI tool that said, hey, we can just use an AI tool to do this work. And so they reached out to me and were like, can we use an AI tool to do this work? But that's kind of one example. We're seeing others where, we contract with someone to do a report. We contract with someone to work on process documentation, things like that. And today there's no clear, like, it's okay or not okay to use AI in those contexts. And so what I wanted to talk through with the council was, what things are we focused on for risks and how do we want to approach that? So I'm gonna talk about risks a little bit, and then I'd like a little bit of brainstorming on, like, outside of IT projects, because I think we have already talked about it in the context of like technology solutions and things like that quite a bit. Outside of that conversation, what risks are we focused on? And then I've got a little bit of language that I pulled together based on our last few sessions and language I got from the state of Georgia and the state of Iowa. That I'll throw on screen so we can talk through it a little bit. Any questions about the framing and like what I'm trying to get to?
No questions on the framing at all. Yeah, I think we have been sort of capturing some of these non-technical things already with an ADS under the guise of data sharing, like if we're sharing data. And so, like oftentimes we have procurements to go out and we're asking for a survey to be done or to assist, with report generation. And there's data sharing, and we're not procuring any technology on our side with or without AI, but the vendor that we're working with to generate these reports and surveys, as an example of what Josiah may be working with, talking about maybe starting to employ, or definitely they are starting to employ AI. And so, Michelle, you're on, but we've had some pretty stringent data sharing rules that we've been applying to those types of procurements for the last 3-4 years at the very least. Probably, we've had something in place for the entirety of ADS, but I think we've gotten more stringent in the last 3 or 4. Michelle, would you be able to comment on that, since you are definitely much of the brains behind that language?
You mean specifically on, I guess, which language? Which
So when
language do you mean?
we do attachment Ds for data sharing with vendors who are just providing services, like they may be providing services to human services, say for summer food programs and things like that. But there's data that's shared with them, those vendors, and so we
Right,
attach our
right.
data sharing agreements, and they have a lot of the protections. But the question
I
would
wouldn't,
be, how much do you feel we really kind of need to start to strengthen those, in consideration of that those vendors may be using AI?
yeah, they weren't really written for AI, but I was talking to Josiah a little bit about this. A lot of them do cover a lot of things that would be covered in the AI world too. I mean, you have to give us a deliverable that works, regardless of how you got there, right? You have to, you can't use our data for things that we don't allow you to use it for, things like that. So in that attachment D, I think when you said data sharing, it threw me off. We do a contract with them, but then we attach certain IT provisions, and some of those are data provisions, and some of those are from C or D or whatever, our attachment alphabet soup is. That's not to say we couldn't add more terms that are more specific to AI in those attachments. And I think, or do we want to add them in the RFP stage or make policies? That's one of the things that we've been thinking about, like how would we go about addressing some of the unique concerns of AI? And I think that's what Josiah's trying to get at, but some of it's covered. My thing is always minimal clauses if possible, but still getting at what we need. If I said too much.
I think you added all the color that I was hoping you'd add. So perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
So
can I ask you a question?
go ahead, John.
That all sounds good, because ultimately you want the result, you want the data not to be shared. You don't care how it wasn't shared. But I know inside the government, we're being we consider it important to declare whether AI was used. Would we want that? If somebody had a piece of software that was being used or a supplier that was being used, would we want them to assert whether AI was or was not used, or do we just care about the results?
That's actually one of the questions I wanted to ask the council is, when we set up the disclosure for state employees, we talked about it was important for transparency and trust. But does that matter? Like if it's somebody who Department of Labor contracts to write a report about, their workforce development programs, do we care whether they used AI? And if they did use AI, do we care if they disclose that? And I'm really interested in the council's thoughts on that. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say it's a matter of trust that the public, if you don't say, the public may be left wondering. So that would be a reason to do it, just for simply for transparency.
I actually concur with that. I concur with that.
Let me come back to that question in a minute. So to Michelle's point about more pages in our contracts is not necessarily the thing that we want if we can avoid it. I wanted to talk a little bit about the risks that we're interested in mitigating. And for these non-IT things, what types of risk would we be looking at? So I grabbed these from the NIST AI 600, which is their, it's not their risk framework, but it's their generative AI risk document. And they kind of bucket them into 3 categories of malfunctions, like the AI system may not work as designed or as expected. And then systemic risks, and then malicious use. I didn't break out malicious use because I think that one is pretty clear to us. Under malfunctions, they actually include hallucinations, confabulations, things like that, because it's not the expected behavior of the tool. Giving the wrong recommendation, especially if it's dangerous or violent. Homogenization and harmful bias are kind of opposite sides of the same thing. So you can either have an AI tool that picks up on characteristics of the applicant that are not relevant, and that biases the model to produce a particular output. Or you can have homogenization, where the AI model doesn't look at characteristics that should be relevant, right? It kind of glosses over them. So kind of 2 opposite sides of the same thing there. And then the last one, value chain and component integration, how you stitch AI into the existing processes and tools, and also what's upstream, the data that's used to train the AI, things like that, all can cause malfunctions. So that's the malfunction block. Systemic risk is about how people interact with the thing, but with the AI tool, environmental and intellectual property, data privacy types of things. And then malicious use is, can it be used nefariously? So those are like some risk categories that are broad and kind of industry accepted standards. Diving into that a little bit, these were, as I was thinking about this, preparing for the meeting, what risks do we have to the state when vendors use AI? I think that public trust that John was just mentioning, risks about compliance, if there's some sort of a requirement that we can or cannot use AI in a particular setting. We want to make sure that passes through to the vendor, as well as if there's outcomes and the use of AI kind of puts us at risk from a compliance perspective there. The quality, this was one I chatted with Michelle about a little bit earlier. What I'm worried about with quality is that historically our staff could look at the content that's provided, say a report, and the things that they would check on when a human writes that are not necessarily the same as the things you need to check on when a AI would write it. And so ideally, we review all of the deliverables under a contract thoroughly before we accept them. That does not always happen in real life. And so I could see value of having a flag on the content that's like, this was AI written, to kind of put people in the mode of, you actually need to like be thinking about fact checking the content more than you would if it was something that was written by a person, for example.
Mhm.
And then finally, the algorithmic bias and making sure that we are having people who are building stuff for us or using AI on our behalf, thinking about whether there's bias and what that could impact the outcome, and also passing through risk to them. Those are four that came to mind for me. What I'd love to have is, are there others that the council is considering? What things am I not thinking of yet? How would you articulate these differently, and have a bit of conversation about this, and circle back to John's question. So back over to you all. Go ahead,
Jess,
Jess.
your hands up. Yep.
Thanks. I was thinking about, oh gosh, like when we first started to have these conversations, I don't know, maybe last year or so, and just thinking like when, maybe I should have thought this out a little before speaking up, but thinking about maybe first the scenarios in which it's appropriate to use AI and when it's not. I think you're talking a lot about report writing, or just as an example, I understand that, but is it ever appropriate for AI to write reports, or is it ever appropriate, or I don't know. I think I'm just trying to think.
That's that's actually an interesting point for, clarification, right? It's a question of, did the AI write the report, or was AI used in writing the report, right?
Yeah,
Um,
because I think we have, yes, thank you so much, Mark, because I think that's exactly what I was trying to say. And we do have standards for, when specifically employees, like when is it appropriate, or how, or I'm sorry, how are state employees allowed to use it, right? And so maybe starting from a place of that, like, are there any scenarios where we would say it's too risky, AI should never be used, even when we talk about biased, right? Like, I think some of those scenarios I think about, and I guess I'm thinking, would it ever be appropriate to, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there are some, right? We've said you can't use AI for evaluating resumes, for
Okay.
making hiring decisions, right? Like that's
Okay.
something that my office has issued as guidance to the state. So there are certain things where we've said, no, you just can't use AI in that realm.
well, I think one area that, I see discussed more and more these days, right, is the notion of vendor lock-in or proprietariness of those AIs and that decision-making process, right? Um, AI doesn't have the same notion of, um, common understanding, right, as the rest of the world does. Like, I'm not an attorney, so Michelle, help me out here, but there's there's the notion of, would a reasonable person or a reasonable whatever, you know, think one way or another. And from an AI perspective, I don't think we have a standard to determine what a reasonable AI is. And in fact, the proprietary relationships with all those AIs are pretty well locking you in. And I think there's a concern growing more and more that, because of the difficulty and cost and the resource consumption to develop those AIs, that there's getting to be fewer and fewer vendors really at the lead of that pack, right? So I think that's an area of risk to the state in terms of vendor AI use, and that we're kind of then possibly at some point locking into an AI ecosystem for whatever purpose.
So the way that would play out was like if we hired, I'm going to use an example here, but if we hired somebody to help us with processing benefits applications, and they were using Google AI for it, and we approved that it was okay for them to use Google AI. Like, we could bring in another vendor to do that processing, but the AI part is maybe locked into that particular cloud vendor. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that's true for any kind of decision support, or even any kind of like, even if you use an AI to help you understand data, you take two different, LLMs and apply the same question to them, and you often get very different answers, right? And I don't think they're at a point where there's a common understanding or a reasonable, standard there for them.
Bill?
Let me turn. So I wasn't gonna say this when I raised my hand, but if you make a decision to purchase a product, whatever that let's talk about information technology product, it's going to be built in an environment, and that environment that you build in is going to have a strategy of vendors to apply to sell you tools into that environment. So if you go to Microsoft Azure, there's going to be a set of tools wrapped around Microsoft Azure's environment to do that. The same is true if you're doing AWS and RDS, and then there's going to be a different group of vendors that offer those sets of tools within that environment. So to a certain extent, the decision making, the base underlying piece of the decision making of the tools that you're buying are going to, at some level, force you into that. And that's part of the rationale is that it is going to allow you a more well-developed environment, will allow you a greater richness of possible tools to operate in. So, but I had a basic question that I wanted to ask, or a little bit further up the line, Josiah. So we're talking about the agency of paperclips buying something, and now when they want to buy it, they're informed that some significant component of that tool or product that they want to buy has AI. Is that the question we're working with?
It's when I'm thinking more right now about services. Okay. And we're contracting with a vendor, possibly even like a small Vermont company, that they're going to do this work for us, and they want to use AI in the provision of those services to us. Like, it's not a technology service, it's a whatever service. It's a general professional service, not particular technology. That's the scope I'm trying to focus this on.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then it may be that the normal and acceptable execution of these services is now going to be done with a group of tools that have artificial intelligence integrated them. If it's dealing with stream bank remediation, then there's a group of models out there that are then applied to the circumstance that inform the way in which we're going to do that remediation. And at what point does it reach the level that it needs to be disclosed if it's normal and customary? We're in this really interesting place where we're looking at AI, and I'm sure everybody knows, but there's 24 microprocessors in a new car connected together with the CAN network across they're trying to reduce the number of processors, but it's all connected together. There's a full-blown network to communicate, and some of those microprocessors are directly related to subcomponent systems, and they don't want to give up the information associated with that, because that creates a capability for someone to continue to sell brake assemblies in a larger car construction. And so you have this really interesting environment. Is it a car or is it a computer? Well, it's a car, and it has all this technology embedded in it. I'm hopefully that wasn't too stupid an example, but it's going to get to a point where everything you buy is going to have it in here. You wouldn't ask a question as to, did someone tabulate that information by hand, or was that information tabulated by a computer?
Yeah, I think.
Yep.
Yep.
I was going to say, I think you're. Go ahead. Somebody else was going to say something there.
Well, it's a different. I mean, you definitely right on. I mean, at Beta, we say we build a computer with wings, and we have 74 computers on our machines. But I do want to make a distinction. Whether it was handled by computers is very different than whether it was handled by AI, isn't it?
I think you're right.
And I think to Phil's point about normal and customary, right? It's maybe interesting right now. Whether it's still interesting in 5 years is another question. As it becomes normal and customary and just ubiquitous. Go ahead, Mark.
Where I think it's going to go in 5 years is it will be normal and customary, but I think the differentiation will be in, identifying that this was facilitated with this language model versus another, right? That's kind of what I see as a potential reasonable response to this, like this service model thing that we're talking about, right? If we ask the question of like, if you're using AI in your service in some capacity, just make note of that and let us know what, at the very least, what language model you're using, right? And I don't think that that's putting an undue burden on anybody. And I don't think that that's going to be something that's going to be obsolete as a notion in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years.
I would agree with you at this moment in time, Mark. Yes. But it's moving at rocket speed.
Yeah, right. Just your hands up. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was gonna say, and again, I'm probably gonna stumble through this. I just also want to caveat that I'm probably the least knowledgeable about this topic, but are we able to, I guess, thinking about what I was trying to say before and all the conversation since then, can we apply the standards that we already have to contracts? So if the Agency of Natural Resources for Act 250, and I'm completely making this up, but like mapping, used an AI tool or some type of tool, right? Or sorry, an AI tool to help generate a list or square footage or something like that. Is that something right now that we would allow with or without disclosure? I think the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
However,
we would expect disclosure, but yes.
Right. So if the agency of, and on the flip side of that, if the Agency of Human Services said, our employee, we're getting slammed with applications, we want to be able to use AI for this specific housing program to go through the applications, the answer would be no. Even with disclosure, you would not be able to do that. So are we able, I guess, to apply those same standards to contracts and saying, these are the ways that you can use it with disclosure. These are the ways that you can use it potentially without disclosure. But these are, and I think what I was trying to get to before were like, are there, and can we identify scenarios where it's like, absolutely not, right? So resume, or analysis or any type of like benefits or eligibility, right, it would be an absolute no. So if the contract that you are signing has any of that, then the answer is no, you cannot. But if they're, with disclosure, these are the set of things that they will be able to do for you.
I think the standard we use in the Code of Ethics is transient and reversible impact.
Okay.
And that's kind of, we go from there to, you can't use it to say no to benefits applications. You could streamline benefit applications, but you can't say no, right? Like,
yeah. So
yeah.
Yes, and I think that's, yes, someone said this earlier, but like, are there decisions being made by the contractor as well, or is the final decision, whatever it may be with the state. I can't necessarily think of an example scenario, but contractors shouldn't be making decisions anyway, right? So I guess in some regards, I guess depending, but the state should always have decision-making authority regardless of the product of the contract. So I guess is there a way to keep the standards that we have, apply that to contracting, but also create some type of accountability or even a process for if you use AI, or if the contractor that you contracted with uses AI, then this is what you'll be held accountable for. Final review.
Thank you,
I'm
Jessica.
laughing, but it's not funny, but like citation, confirmation, that kind of thing.
Yep. Thank you. Amanda, your hand's up as well.
I was just noting I put essentially the same thing in the chat as Jessica just explained.
Sorry about that.
No, that was a better way to explain it than what I had said. But I was thinking, like, if we do put our brand or our name on a document as well that a vendor has given us on a report, and I don't know how we could do that as a state employee if it violated our policy and standards for AI use. So how could we put that out there as like a report we got if it doesn't align with our own values? How could we call that ours as well?
I think that was much more succinct. So I appreciate that. Yes.
Thank you. Those are helpful. I want to pivot over to the document because I think it addresses some of these things. This is what happens when you're kind of evolving with me in real time. So so I think the question that I had, and I didn't say it very eloquently, was what parts of the guidance that we already have should we apply, and what additional things do we need to apply? Because we don't have the same relationship with vendors as we have with our state employees, right? Like in general, like we don't have the supervisory structure. We have a contractual relationship generally, which is just different. So I'm gonna do a quick walk through this, and looking at the time, I'm gonna do a walk through this and then send it around, and y'all can digest it. Go ahead, Phil.
I again, and for all the lawyers on the call, please forgive me, but what something you just said just really struck a chord with me, and that is that if we have a work environment and we bring contractors into that work environment, then we're responsible for continuing that same set of standards in that work environment. And as an organization, we can be liable for creating a hostile environment if it's contractors creating that or other types of activities. So it would seem to me that you would want the same circumstance, that you would want your vendors to adhere to and follow the same code or codes that you were applying to your employees. That I mean, maybe that's just way too simple, but I would think that would be something. Over.
I bet Michelle wants to comment on that. Go for it. You're muted though.
I'm muted though. I'm muted. A practical consideration is a lot of these big companies have their own internal policies and processes that absolutely comply with ours, but they don't like to sign our contract saying we'll adhere to the states because they've got a million contracts across all the states to manage. So I would just be looking for a way to do this that doesn't necessarily make us negotiate every one of these terms with every company because of their unique circumstances when they do meet our values, or there's a way to do that. Maybe we find it out more in the RFP process or the evaluation criteria. I don't know. I'm not against it. I am just trying to point out some of the difficulties that we run into trying to impose these on big companies.
And I think what I've tried to write is, so it could be contract clause, like, so once I get a sense from you all on which things should be in and out, and we kind of coalesce on that, what types of things we want covered in our relationship with vendors, then I'm going to work with Michelle and our lawyers in the AG's office and our procurement folks and say, all right, is the best way an attachment to contracts? Is it a standard? Is it a whatever it is? I don't think we've decided that yet. I want to focus on, I don't want to bog you all down in that, as fun as that conversation is. But I'll let you know where it lands. Okay, what's in here? Just I'm going to kind of walk through it. I'm going to skip definitions because definitions are hard and I'm still working on them. It's the responsibility of people who are working with the state, that's what party means, to maintain compliance and to ask questions. That's where we start. And then they need to comply with our code of ethics, which includes the transient and reversible impacts is in there. I can make that more explicit, but that's what I'm getting at there, is like, you have to comply with the code of ethics. I'm not saying you must comply with the employee use guidelines, kind of for the reason that Michelle laid out. Companies have various guidelines, some of which are compatible. A lot of them don't include a citation. So I'm trying to like include the citation in this. I'll get to that in a minute. There's going to be requirements that are not in the standard. I'm going to basically gloss over 4. So the fun parts are down here in 5 and 6. So this 5 is largely taken from Iowa. That we require prior written approval before using AI in the provision of things to the state. So during the RFP process, they can say we use AI, and then if we contract with them and say, yep, it's fine that you use that, then that counts. But if we say have a long-standing relationship with a vendor and they, let's imagine it's a firm that we've contracted with to help us with change management, for evolving some processes. That's not directly a tech thing, but they may want to start using AI in order to generate some of the documentation or facilitate some of the conversations. That's where we'd want to see notice that was happening and do prior approval. Go ahead, Mark.
So 5C is where I was thinking we would be a little bit more explicit in the documentation requirements to state we're stating that they already have to include appropriate comments indicating that they're using AI. We should also, that's where I was saying we should include the LLM or whatever that they're using.
Yep. I can tie these closer together. I included that in 6D.
Okay. Sorry.
5C was really a hook into it saying it needs to be like in the delivered code for where it's code, because code is a little bit different. And code may be like an Excel file, right? Like there's our definition of AI is super broad. Yeah, that's a great call out though.
Okay, thank you.
5B is about using state data for training AI systems. We already say you can't use state data unless we authorize it. This is an explicit, and you can't use it for training AI unless you get written approval. And then C, we just talked about. 6 goes over work product. Generally, it's okay to use AI. This would not preclude a particular contract from saying you can't use AI for these functions that you're providing under the contract or under the grant or under the whatever it is. And then human responsibility, I pulled this from our, adapted it from our employee guidelines. Same thing with C, which is about review of work. D is the citation, again, from our employee guidelines. And E, I took this from Iowa. I thought it was a really good approach. They were envisioning that people could offer services potentially at a lower rate, assuming that they were going to use AI to do them. But if we found that the AI system was not performing adequately, they needed to do it with people instead. And so there needs to be a human alternative in case the AI system does not end up working properly. And that gives an option. Michelle may have thoughts on this as well, but that would give the option either to pivot to doing that work with people or end that relationship. And then the last one is algorithmic discrimination, which is provision and services of goods is fair, impartial, and free of discrimination. I'm going to jump down to C, which kind of passes through to third-party AI offerings and has the party that we're working with make sure that the third party, like if they're using a ChatGPT or a Google or a specific tool that they've gotten from a third party, they need to make sure that the third party is holding up this as well. And then B, I took from Iowa and really don't love, but this is the approach that they're taking, which is that there's a poem for how they're using data in training AI models, which is a good idea. What I don't love is that they're requiring everyone to submit one if they're using an AI model, which is a lot of paperwork. But we have a big filing cabinet, so we can do that too if you all want to. So that's what I've put in so far. And again, the focus of this is non-IT systems. And I know we're close to time, so I guess I'll say if there's any initial feedback, otherwise digest this. I'll circulate it if you don't already have it, and we can talk about it more in July.
Thank you to that. All right. So in the next part of our agenda, we'll be opening the conversation up to the public. There's a few members on the call here. If you would like to comment, please raise your hand and we'll recognize you. And like we said before, we'll try to keep comments germane to the topics for today and also within a 2-minute or so time frame. I see Sylvic Overby. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, by the way.
I'm actually just here to mostly watch because I'm very interested in what you guys are doing, and I'm just sort of bringing myself up to speed on what you're doing. But partly I'm focusing, my interest is a lot in artificial intelligence in the law, and I've just sort of monitoring that. I was an employee of the U.S. Attorney's Office for many, many years. So I was just going to share with you a link to a conference that's coming up in a week, the International Artificial Intelligence in the Law Conference, which I'm going to be attending. And so I was just curious is how much you're dealing with that. And it seems like this is really more focused a lot on protecting people and the state from impacts of artificial intelligence. But there's a lot going on that's very disruptive and interesting and challenging and over the top with lawyers. So I'll put in the chat the link to the agenda if you have any interest in it. It's very nerdly. There's attorneys, there's computer nerds. Probably I get 20% out of some of the workshops. They're so mind-boggling. But it was great listening to your what you're doing here, and I'm going to review some of your materials. And I just wanted to review what Vermont was doing before I went to Chicago to see this, just to see how it might tie in to the work that you guys are doing. Because boy, you got to do the best you can to stay ahead of it, and it's not going to be easy. So that's my only comment.
Well, thank you for that. A normal participating member of our council is with the Attorney General's office, Chris Curtis. So I'm sure he could be a resource if you're ever interested to know more about what his office is doing as well, because that's very much an area they're focused on.
I have met him a few times at various events over the years. And things have just changed so rapidly, as you said. It's not like I went to this conference in 2019 and they were just sort of focusing on like natural language processing, and we're way past that at this point. So it's actually quite scary. Anyway, I'll watch your meetings at some point, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. So I put in the chat there, the link to the agenda if you have an interest in that. So
thank you.
Keep on it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and come back anytime. You're welcome. All right. Do we have any other public members who'd like to, speak? Okay, with that, I think we're done with our full agenda for today, so we can take motions to adjourn. Oh, do we have a date, the specific date for our next meeting? I know it's always the first Friday of the month, but I think July, haven't even double checked. Are we running at risk of the 4th interfering?
Yeah, the 4th of
Okay.
July is our next meeting. I would suggest that we, because it's a holiday, hold the meeting on the 11th instead. If council is amenable to that, I'll have it adjusted.
Yeah, I don't think we need a formal vote. I don't think anybody wants to meet on it's gonna prefer the 4th over the 11th. All right.
Okay.
With that, take motions to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. So move.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We've got the majority that we need. So thank you again. Everybody have a great weekend. And Josiah, thank you for all your hard work on this. And we really look forward